Global web mapping apps have become extremely popular, but while Google Maps is extremely effective at finding particular routes or locations, it lacks the capability to provide users with a unique experience of the city that they are exploring. All of my critical research questions link back to the physical environment, specifically to how graphic designers are coping with navigation and the urban environment. While many of you listening to this presentation share different life experiences and preferences from me, I am confident that you have at some point used the app Google Maps to find either where you are, where you need to be, or what you should see in an urban space. Through my own observations of modern society, I would argue that we are spending more time than ever using mobile applications to help us navigate cities, and that this growing screen time is actually taking us out of our physical experience and making it less fun. Did you know that a recent study of adults in London by juice company Innocent concluded that at least 30% of adults check their phone at least every 30 minutes? Paul Goldberger argues in his talk, Disconnected Urbanism, when people discover a city through their mobile phones, they may physically be in that city, but their minds are focused on other places. For many, the act of exploring a new urban landscape has therefore necessarily become less an enjoyable experience. Despite this realization, those visiting a particular city still want to experience the distinctive features and quirks that make a city unique, even as this has become more challenging as a result of globalization. The founder of Applied Wayfinding, Tim Fendley, contends the differentiation and distinctiveness particular to places will have more, not less importance in the digital age. Events, unique gatherings, and face-to-face meetings will become more powerful, and local flavor, accent, and attitude will be even more sought after. Urban wayfinding systems can therefore play an important role in improving the quality of people's experiences of a city. My work as a postgraduate student, designer, and passionate urban navigator points directly to how we engage with our urban spaces and what designers can do to make these environments more engaging. This talk, Story to Sidewalk, is going to focus on one specific way for tying the challenges and opportunities presented by urban wayfinding together, by telling a story, by creating a narrative. Our journey together today will start with a look at storytelling in a variety of contexts, from literary studies to business design, followed by defining the areas and roles of urban wayfinding. Then, I will turn the page and fast forward to a discussion with Bristol-based City ID that will help me to illustrate how the storytelling approach can provide a city with a strong individual identity through the wayfinding lens. Before walking into the idea of using storytelling as an approach in urban wayfinding, I want to give you a solid and familiar context and definition of storytelling, as well as a more comprehensive understanding of what is meant by the concept of wayfinding. Storytelling can also be referred to as narrative, a term primarily used in the study of languages and literature. Can you remember the first story that you ever wrote? This was the title of mine, Aubrey and the Magic Dots. I wrote this story when I was 6 years old, and like all stories, mine included a plot which revolved around the characters, 6 magic dots that were actually round neon stickers you buy at the office supply store, bouncing through what I remember to be my childhood neighborhood with the goal of having just a good old time. Film literary critic and Professor Seymour Chapman would argue that there are clear distinctions between what is narrative and what is a story. My highly complex magic dot composition contains all of the elements of a basic story: setting, plot, and characters. The narrative, from this viewpoint, would be the way in which the story is told, whether that is verbally, in a film, through dance, or through a landscape. Simply put, by a really smart guy, H. Porter Abbott, Professor Emeritus of English at the University of California, Santa Barbara, narrative is the representation of an event or series of events. Without an event or an action, you may have a description, an exposition, an argument, a lyric, some combination of these or something else altogether, but you won't have a narrative. Let's look at an example here. I have a cold is a description of me, but it is not a narrative because nothing happens. I was given a cold by my husband would be a narrative, according to Abbott, because it tells of an event. The event is a very small one, the giving of a cold from one person to another, but that is enough to make it a narrative, and also enough for me to expect a lot of sympathy from the culprit. As well as in the spoken or written word, these defining features of narrative are also evident in other mediums of storytelling, such as fixed or moving images, gestures, music, and landscapes. Our cultural landscape is littered for millennia with many of humanity's most treasured models of storytelling: myths, fables, epics, tragedies, comedies, and dramas, and of course some of my most favorite paintings and festivals. I am a huge fan of the National Portrait Gallery in London. This painting, titled Venus and Mars, was completed in 1485 by Sandro Botticelli and is featured as one of the 30 highlight paintings in the National Gallery's world-class website collection. In Roman mythology, Mars, god of war, was one of the lovers of Venus, goddess of love. In this painting, Mars is asleep and unarmed, while Venus is awake and alert. The National Gallery tells us the meaning of this painterly representation is that love conquers war, or love conquers all. Through these examples, we can see that narrative is a significant element in everyday life, capturing the key moments and lessons that help us make choices, understand our experiences and surroundings, and express them through recollection, interpretation, and creation of stories, and most importantly, sharing them. Communication is a huge part of my daily practice in design and marketing. Much of my day is spent finding the right medium and message to encourage eco-friendly business practices within the global cruise industry. I have found in business and in personal situations that how you say something is often even more important than what you say. Many anthropologists and sociologists have explored the relationship between the use of language and society. Barbara Johnstone, professor of English and linguistics at Carnegie Mellon University, states that narratives are shared voices which reflect the texture of the community. Narratives allow people to communicate with and understand each other within communities and wider society through stories that foster a sense of shared cultural experience. I believe that prehistoric cave drawings like those found in the caves of Lascaux and in southern France are some of the most powerful examples of this. Ancient smudges of animals, human beings, and simple objects have been found in most parts of the world, from Europe to Africa, America, Asia, Australia, and the Polynesian Islands. The ones found in Figure 2 date to around 13,000 BCE. Experts believe that they were drawn on cave walls to serve as prompts for those narrating stories, while also helping their audiences to visualize the tale being recounted. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the most ancient form of narrative. Add to this narrative recipe that modern theaters and concert halls wouldn't be available for thousands of years later, so the caves like those found in France became the venue of choice for listening to stories. They not only bring people together, but stories also bring people to specific places. If you comb the most popular job boards online, Indeed, LinkedIn, etc., you are bound to run into some well-paid positions in the field of user experience design, or UXD. Companies now use the art of storytelling as a means of communicating with consumers, as evidenced by adverts designed to portray the lives of their customers or depict the experiences of their employees. One of the best examples of a corporation that has been the most successful in using storytelling to sell their products to consumers is Apple. I could go on about the crazy number of iPhones sold globally, but instead I want to focus on one controversial product in the Apple line, and that is the Apple Watch. Joe Concanon from the UXD studio Digital Telepathy writes, "This wearable device announces alerts from calendars, phone messages, and social media, reports and coordinates fitness with heart rate and motion sensors, and accommodates its own apps, all within a 38mm or 42mm wristwatch." Speaking at Goldman Sachs Technology and Internet Conference in San Francisco in 2014, Apple CEO Tim Cook said that Apple Watch will change the way people live their lives. Wow, that's a tall order for a piece of tech. This clip from the Apple Watch website shares one particularly powerful statement about this technology. Never miss what matters, because it's on your wrist. Apple Watch lets you receive notifications immediately and conveniently. The moment the people or apps you care about have something to say, you'll feel a gentle tap. Then you can send just the right response, just like that. You can communicate through pictures without using any words, and even send a recording of your heartbeat to a loved one. Never miss what matters. The issue I have with this statement goes back to my introduction. Can personal devices that connect us more than ever to people in a digital way distract us from navigating the physical interactions that we have with people and our environment? Shouldn't this be what really matters? This line of thinking brings up many questions for me in my research, but to stay on topic here, I'll say that businesses and products continue to shape our shared experiences and will create positive and negative consequences in building the individual narratives of communities. The Society for Experiential Graphic Design, or SEGD, has a very concise definition of wayfinding, which I use to describe it in my practice. Wayfinding refers to information systems that guide people through a physical environment and enhance their understanding and experience of the space. As people continue to move to urban centers of the world, and these environments become increasingly complicated and crowded, people need visual cues such as maps, signs, and symbols to help guide them to their destinations. In these high-stress, extremely sensory environments, a wayfinding system that utilizes the right combination of physical and digital tools can contribute to a sense of safety and security in urban settings for groups that must coexist with varying sizes of mechanical transport. Wayfinding specialists develop signage and information systems for both pedestrians and motorists, who each have unique challenges navigating streets and roadways. These information systems help people develop mental maps of the terrain and simplify their routes to the extent possible. Urban wayfinding tools, physical or digital, or a combination of both, are tailored to the needs of their environments and aligned to the intended purpose of the system. This example comes from the Pentagram and City ID collaborative project Walk NYC. As a pedestrian form of wayfinding, the system uses directional signs and static maps to navigate people walking the pavement and through train stations. In contrast, this project, On the Go, interactive kiosks operated by a control group, are situated in subway stations and provide digital wayfinding tools such as countdown to arrival, real-time train information, and one-touch graphic maps. Though both projects were commissioned by the Metropolitan Transport Authority, each continues to use a completely different approach to engaging with audiences. Along with the functional aspects of helping people get around, wayfinding systems can significantly contribute to a city's identity. The Transport for London logo appears on all forms of mass transit servicing the city, from boats and trains to the famous London Tube system. This well-known symbol first appeared in 1905 when it was chosen as the motif that represented a wheel of a train for a newly established London General Omnibus Company. What I see now when I take a trip to London, the blue bar and red circle, has become a defining feature of London's transportation network and a symbol of London's identity. You may think by the tone of my presentation that I'm not a fan of emerging technologies and their uses in wayfinding, but this is far from the truth. I see smartphones, apps, and interactive kiosks as an opportunity to help people gain a deeper understanding of their spaces. We need to keep a balance and make sure that the tools we implement serve the purpose they are intended for and are developed with input from the people using them. Who is walking this walk and making the most of the tools available? How can designers bring technology into the fold that can support the other, more physical pathways for engagement? Real-time data is an information gathering tool which has only recently been considered by designers as a way of broadening the reach of urban wayfinding. I feel this famous quote by Donald Rumsfeld speaks to my exploration of data. As we know, there are known knowns. There are things that we know we know. We also know there are known unknowns. That is to say, we know there are some things we do not know, but there are also unknown unknowns. The ones we don't know, we don't know. What I know is that easily available, accurate, and up-to-date user data is going to have exciting implications for wayfinding and create a deeper connection to the journey narrative. Urban Flow Helsinki is a project co-created by Nordcap and UrbanScale, which encompasses an operating system for Helsinki to generate and curate real-time data that gets fed back to the city. The aim of the project is to make the city more accessible and enjoyable for both residents and visitors through interactive services using living data from the city. By sharing real-time data and feedback about the city, we aim to create a more efficient, transparent relationship between city administrators and citizens. I would describe Urban Flow as more of a way-showing platform, providing users with two-way communication screens between themselves and the city authority. Touches, swipes, and zooming allow users to dive deeper into the city and not only seek an orientation, but also estimate walking times to key locations, as well as read excerpts about places of interest. Urban Flow shows us how storytelling can contribute to the development of interactive wayfinding models, particularly given that storytelling can enhance the prototyping process. The limited number of academic sources available on how storytelling can be applied to urban wayfinding does prevent some challenges for developing a coherent understanding of the relationship between the two. However, this is a very exciting time for the field of experiential graphic design, which is growing in popularity and presenting some unique opportunities for open discussion about practitioners. I was able to pull some very interesting perspectives from an interview with senior designer Dave Gilman of City ID in Bristol. City ID is actually a global studio network with branches in the UK and US. I participated in a Playable City Day workshop in Bristol in 2015, where I learned that City ID specialize in placemaking, city identity, legibility, and wayfinding projects. In their own words, the City ID team approach is seen here and is to work openly and collaboratively with their clients, design partners, and project stakeholders. They listen, question, and analyze to build better understanding of cities and places. Skills are drawn from a range of specialisms, including urban design, transport planning, project management, environmental psychology, information design, and place branding. Dave Gilman has worked on a variety of citywide and regional projects, including Southampton Legible City, Bath Public Realm and Movement Strategy, a Legible London Pilot Scheme, and the London 2012 Olympic Park Wayfinding Strategy. Most recently, David has been leading the design development of Walk NYC with Pentacity Group in New York City, and the system design of Interconnect West Midlands in the UK. For Gilman, storytelling is about effectively interpreting and projecting the image of a particular place by understanding its essential components, its unique character. He believes that while landmarks and tourist attractions are important for the narrative of any city, to understand the full story, you must look beyond the obvious and consider every facet of that city's character, especially the people that make up the city and the culture and traditions to which they take part in. This interpretation of storytelling chimes with the perspective of many urban designers, including Matthew Pottinger and Jamie Purrington. For a designer, then, it is a matter of not only learning how to tell stories in landscapes, but developing a critical awareness of the processes and implications of narrative, whose story is told, and what values and beliefs inhere in the telling. When we are approached by a client, one of the first steps that we take is to analyze the greatest challenges and establish the main corridors that are used by people. These corridors create pockets of opportunity around an urban space and must be recorded in great detail. We will literally send members of our team out on bikes, in cars, and on trains to build this network map. You can see how this comes together in the City ID project, Interconnect Birmingham. Gilman primarily views storytelling as a method of communicating with users and clients. Engaging with the public is what really makes everything come together. We conduct user testing throughout the various stages of any project to get feedback from real users about what we're creating for them. User testing at City ID takes the form of interactive roundtable discussions as seen here, and also open studios where councils and other funding partners can see creative progress in real time. These interactions help keep the compass of the narrative true to the needs of the local community. As a tool, storytelling has rippled through history as a form of expression because it can be so easily shared. We find special meaning in stories and connect them to a special point in time or a particular environment. A common ground can be found in the way that we share written, verbal, and visual communication, especially as technology blurs the boundaries of personal and public space. Designers face the challenges of crowded and chaotic urban corridors and designing for a population of users on the spectrum of digital ability. Looking to storytelling as an approach to urban wayfinding not only engages people in the process of building community, but highlights the special, unique qualities of a city that make a place people want to return to in the future. Thank you.